Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Kim with K Montes Art Studio, and we're talking about art history. Keith Haring, to be exact. I purchased this in a previous art haul. These two products right here that are a Caran D'Ache collaboration with Keith Haring, and I thought it'd be really important to talk about him and his great ways of being. He was an amazing artist. I have this book here that was given to me over 10 years ago, and just his history and his way of being was so prolific for his short amount of time on this earth. So he was actually from Pennsylvania, Reading, Pennsylvania to be exact, and he started as an illustrator, and his father actually wanted him to eventually design for Disney. That wouldn't show up until right before his death, where he received a letter from Disney stating they wanted him to revamp Mickey. And unfortunately, he passed away from AIDS. But before his passing, he made such an impact to the art community in so many specific ways. So he started in his early 20s drawing on blackboards in the subway, and he would make sure that these drawings were very quick and easy, because he only had a limited amount of time before cops came and possibly arrested him. He did get arrested a couple times, but he started off with making these drawings and then moved into painting on traditional mediums, but his focus was very political. So some of his art did deal with the politics that were happening during the 80s. Some of his art dealt with, you can see here, religion. Some of it dealt with war. Some of it dealt with the gay community, because he was also a queer man in the 80s in New York. He did end up moving from Reading to New York, and he just wanted to spread awareness of all these different types of political issues. So most of his figures, which I love, deal with dancing and movement and freedom. He wasn't afraid to be loud and expressive. And in those short 10 years, he was able to become a very prolific artist. His last 2 years of his life is when he became the most well-known, and while being shown in galleries, he was also doing street art, also known as graffiti. And that's when people started to really recognize him and things started to blow up. He did sculptures. He did paintings on walls. He did risographs. He was very, very renowned for his time. He was also great friends with Andy Warhol and Jean-Michel Basquiat. And they were all a part of the gay community. Some fun facts that I written down in my chicken scratch over here. I thought it was really important how he raised so much money, which I never knew. He created a foundation to raise money for AIDS awareness and for art education. Another thing that he did that was really influential was be a part of the protest front line when it came to raising awareness about art, and his art and AIDS. These two pieces right here, this one was his most famous piece. Ignorance equals fear, silence equals death, fight AIDS, act up. These three people were people that had no gender, no sexuality, they represented everyone essentially. And then they marked these X's on the people to represent that they were people with AIDS. And he wanted to also show that they were dancing, seeing no evil, hearing no evil, and speaking no evil. But he also wanted to let people know that AIDS wasn't something that you can contract from kissing, from sitting on toilet seats. So he really wanted to explain that this was not something that you can contract just by standing next to someone. It was more so of an awareness of safe sex and all of those political things that went along with it. So in order to make things known, he created this poster and worked with the community to raise awareness. He mentioned in one of his documentaries that he was interviewed on that he had a feeling that he wasn't going to live long, and I think mainly because he knew that he had AIDS and he wasn't sure how long he would last. But he wanted to take those last couple years and do as much as he could. He was able to become so renowned. I mean, being good friends with Andy Warhol and a couple other famous artists. So he, in those last 2 years, made his foundation and spread awareness and raise money for art education and AIDS. But his story is very, very important to artists in the gay community, and the way he fought for certain things. So again, this is the Haring book by Alexandria Kolsa. It's a Taschen book. It was gifted to me and very helpful. I'll also link in the bio the video that I watched to gain more information. So with all of that being said, let's jump into this fun coloring book, Caran D'Ache coloring pad and watercolor set. And before we jump into this, let's just give you some understanding of what I'll be using. So again, this is the Caran D'Ache Keith Haring collection, limited edition, or special edition, I should say. This comes with a selected type of colors, and I'm only going to try to stick to these watercolor pencils. This also comes with a brush liner. And of course, because these are water soluble, I wanted to add the Caran D'Ache water soluble Neo 2s just for some added oomph. And this is the 10 pack of Neo Color 2s. I have these Pilot Varsity pens here just in case, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use them yet, but just going to keep them off to the side just in case if I do end up using them. And for the coloring pad, I'm going to be sketching or coloring this sheet here. So I want to be able to use at least all of the colors here and see how they work. These also come with, does this come with, so this one does not come with a watercolor brush, so I'm gonna go grab one. Okay, so first impressions, I think the color pencils seem pretty good. I had a couple chipping happening, nothing too crazy. I expected it to be a bit more vibrant, but after I colored things in, I used a small brush to blend it in. So it could just be the purple. So let's try another color over here. So for this round, I double colored the little blue person, and then I went in and used the water brush to smudge things in. Then I went back in and colored again. If you stare at it at like a glance, you can see where I colored in again. So it does create sort of a glare effect. So I'm going to try to blend that in to see what happens. But so far it's pretty pigmented for a watercolor pencil. Let's try to use a Neocolor 2 on here. So I'm going to make this person, not purple, let's do pink. What I've noticed is that Caran D'Ache is, again, tried and true, consistent with their pigments. The fact that I cannot tell the difference between the color pencils and the Neocolors is so awesome. They have the same effect, if you can see that. They create the same texture. The pigment is really nice. Everything is so vibrant and also very smooth to the touch. This pink one is still drying a bit. That's the one thing that I've noticed, is that the Neocolor 2s takes a little longer to dry, but nothing too crazy. So let's see how this liner pen does on top of the colors. So Keith would like to do these little lines, so I'm gonna do some lines in here. Two things, these three things are match made in heaven. You can't even tell. Once it dries, it's pretty matte. It's still drying on the Neocolor. So let's see. The one difference is, I think maybe once it's done drying, the Neocolor leaves the ink with a little sheen, whereas a color pencil, watercolor pencil, leaves it flat. So I'm not sure if, yeah, I'm like looking at it from an angle. I'm not sure. So let's see. All right, so I'm going to speed up this video and finish coloring it and give you my full review. Done. That was massively fun. Not in any skillful way, for sure. I think this was very liberating. Also enjoyed combining the two Neocolors and the color pencils, the quality is exactly the same. I would say depending on the color, you can see a variation of different tones. So I used the cobalt blue in the clouds and these two blues, which they don't seem to have a color label on. Let's just call this light blue and dark blue. I didn't see a major difference. Of course, when you use the Neocolor 2s very heavily, it does release a lot of pigment. But if I were lighter on pressure, I would still get the consistent color. So that's good news, that the pigment is still very consistent between the watercolor pencils and the Neocolors. This set here is so much fun. I definitely recommend it. I think I would be interested to try this, however, on watercolor paper that is better quality. But regardless, I don't think the paper quality is the best. It does hold up pretty well. It's not terrible. Let's just say that much. They did a good job at picking medium student grade paper. It's not terrible. It doesn't warp. It holds up the water pretty well. I would love to do one more professionally and less fun. Creatively, I was just having a good time reviewing things. But yeah, this is definitely something that is an adult activity, something to take a break from your typical art. Also, just to have fun. This is how I imagine this, so I can take a break from my own art and dive into other people's art. I love how they did this very saturated pigmentation here. So that's how I would want to color it, and to get that effect, I would probably use my Neocolors or markers, water-soluble markers. But this is a very fun activity. Definitely recommend. I hope you enjoyed this video.